Hello.
Hey everyone. Whoops. Okay. Nenad, really great to have you here in Maribor. Thanks for being part of Podim.
My pleasure.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. Not just because your story, kind of like starting as a consultancy business from Balkan and then like making a global success story. Not that just that's inspiring, but it's kind of like also super relatable to many founders in the region and in the audience. So welcome.
Thanks.
And on that note, while Clockify and Cake.com as a brand are kind of like amazing global traction, global success, I think that like in the region, it's still not that well known how big the story actually is. And from even my perspective, like I heard for Clockify like ages, like years ago, but honestly I didn't know that actually a Serbian team is behind it, and for sure I didn't know the scale of the success. So I know, like I read that kind of like Bloomberg and Forbes named Clockify for several years in a row as kind of like the best time tracking platform globally. But can you kind of like just share some numbers and basically a snapshot how big actually the whole Cake.com story is?
Okay, so I don't know. We have like probably like 9 million registered users. Obviously, not everyone is using it every day. We have close to 600 employees globally, and when it comes to revenue, we're in the, I can't really say the exact number, but we're in that range, 25 to 100 million in annual recurring revenue. So that's across 3 products. Clockify, Cake has like 3 products, but the most popular one is Clockify. So, and obviously, like when you think of time tracker, like who would imagine that like a clock can make so much money, right? So, yeah.
I know that we like don't want to talk about exact numbers, and we're talking about unicorns, and like now they're having like a second Serbian or like unicorn with Serbian roots. But is Clockify already a unicorn?
Well, I mean, it depends, you know, like we talk to like a lot of folks who are interested like in our business, you know, some would value it at like $500 million, you know, some others would say like, oh, that's like 2 billion business. So you don't really know until money changes hands, right? So we would have to actually sell something to know like what someone is really willing to pay for it. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Before we continue, you know, guys, like you can use Slido to ask questions. I'll be checking. And I think they will share if any questions pop out, so don't be shy. Anyway, just to kind of like rewind a bit, like before Clockify, you started from Novi Sad, you're running a consultancy / outsourcing company. Can you just share a bit more like how were things back then?
Well, I mean, I was a software engineer guy, like who studied software engineering, obviously sold my time to kind of do consulting services. That business kind of scaled to close to 100 people. We were all selling time, and what we did, we basically reinvested all profits to build products. And pretty much like I've spent like my entire 20s blowing all my money on products that never gained traction, you know. So they all failed, you know, and it was just like so much frustration, and I tried many different things, and one like had like some notable amount of money that it made, but like realistically, like in today's scale, like what I'm seeing today, like it was just like all horrible businesses, you know. And yeah, I basically was broke constantly for 10 years, you know, worked 80-hour weeks, and yeah, I constantly had no money because I was like constantly investing all the money in products. So, yeah.
But before that, was there like while you were doing consultancy, was there any specific moment of time, or maybe even a frustration where you said, okay, I'll stop with like service business. You can't stop. You have to kind of keep having it until you kind of start making money on a product. So, I mean, the thing is, like, I realized really early on that like service is not a scalable business model, you know, so that I have to build a product, you know. And I had some exposure to like US and Silicon Valley, so I knew what people were doing there. Like, no one in Silicon Valley was like, oh, let me build like
like a software consulting company. No, I'm going to use that skill to build product, you know. But the difference is, like, they can raise money so easily, right, and use their skills to build products directly. With us, like, no. Like, when I was starting, like, there was no, like, these fancy firms like South Central Ventures, you know, and yours. So yeah, like, raising money was, like, very difficult, and I mean, we just didn't have the right attitude, even when it comes to, like, raising money from foreign investors. So.
And of course, like, back then, the region was heavily underfunded. Still nowadays, we have active VCs, regional, and also European, looking at kind of like looking specifically at the Balkans. But back then, as you said, like, the challenge to raise money was, it was there. So you actually had this luxury to bootstrap, which many founders nowadays, they don't. And when you look back, like, bootstrapping actually allowed you to stay fully independent. So do you think that actually not fundraising back then was kind of like a blessing in disguise?
I mean, to be honest, I tried to fundraise, you know, but, like, I was only getting, like, shitty deals, you know. So if I got a better deal, I might have, like, signed a paper with the devil, right? But, like, all the deals were, all the offers were, like, so bad that I just couldn't do it, you know. And we had, like, a constant growth in revenue, and we had, like, money from consulting, so that made it easier, you know. Like, it just, like, the value of time spent fundraising was just, like, too high. Like, it just had, like, too big of a cost, you know, given the circumstances. If you had, like, circumstances where we didn't have any money, didn't have any revenue, didn't have any growth, it would definitely be different, you know. So I would probably have to settle for some shitty deal, you know. Like.
And let me actually ask you, so from our perspective, when we are talking with the founders and they have existing business, which they're using to fund the new one, we are always concerned about the focus, and because they always have a plan B, like, if this idea fails, you just go back to the, so what's, like, can you, I don't know, do you have any point of view on that, like, how to position yourself?
I mean, obviously, like, you guys have to analyze the risk, you know. From your perspective, I think it's super, like, totally, like, reasonable to assume that there's more risk, like, in such setup. So I think founders should take that into account, like, when they're, like, kind of assessing the image they're projecting. Obviously, like, it's best for VC, like, to kind of have founders super focused. But yeah, I think it's difficult for founder to communicate their dedication if they have all these, like, signals, you know. So it's just about perspective, you know. I'm not saying that things are not possible. I was definitely focused on Clockify, you know, but that's because I was able to build a business that was kind of relatively independent from me, you know. So that is the difference. I didn't have to code, like, to do client work. I had other people who were doing that, so I was able to focus for real. But I'm not sure if investors have enough proof to believe that.
Yeah.
So
exactly. We have a couple of questions. Like, I think the top one is really good. Is there anything else?
How was the psychological transition from being an engineer to being a founder and a manager, leader of startup team? I mean, it wasn't really difficult for me. I was really a hustler, like, since, like, really early age, and my parents were kind of entrepreneurs as well in totally different industries, so that kind of did set me up psychologically for that kind of stuff, although I really like engineering, you know, even today. So I'm looking forward to the day when I'm going to be able to be an engineer again. So, but I would have to, like, kind of scale down the company from, like, close to 600 to 10. So hopefully that happens again in the future. So yeah, not really a big problem for me, you know. What other questions do we have?
We'll talk about this one later. So before Clockify was, like, attempt number 8. So
yeah.
Before that, you had 7, let's say, not so successful experiments or products.
Yeah.
What kept you pushing, and kind of like that you kept this belief that you're on the right path?
Yeah. So Clockify was the first product where I got into without any expectations. You know, I was like, okay, this is my last attempt. You know, after this fails, I'm just gonna go get a job at, like, FANG, you know. I was already living in the Bay Area, you know. So I was like already like in my early 30s, and I just like, I was kind of out of my energy, or at least that's what I believed at the time, you know, because that did happen before, you know, where I was like, okay, this is the last time, I'm never gonna do this shit again. So what kept pushing me with Clockify is the fact that I saw traction, you know. When you have like 5 failed products, you know how the data was when you had like a failed business. You know what it took like for you to see to declare that business failed business. And when you have like, when you see something that makes traction, it's like super easy to see the difference, you know. So when I saw that difference, I was like, okay, well, there's something here. Maybe I should keep investing into this thing. I was very like not interested in that product, to be honest, initially. But when I started seeing traction, that totally shifted for me. But I had these like other reference points, you know, where I was able to kind of see the difference, you know, and kind of see that there's something there. So basically traction and numbers kept pushing me to kind of invest into this thing.
But if Clockify, God forbid, failed,
yeah,
would there be attempt number 9?
We don't know, you know. Like, I mean, I told myself there's not going to be that, but you never know. Like, typically it took me like, after a failure, after like kind of that kind of depression where you don't really like to talk about that stuff, you know, it took me like 2 or 3 months on average to get inspiration again and do the next thing, you know. But I really believe that that's related to age, and I really believe that we have like a short energy window where we can do things that are that stressful, you know. So especially like if you have like wife and kids, like, and like people to kind of care for financially, you know, I think that's like additional layer of pressure that I didn't have at the time, and just like it wasn't a problem, you know. I was just able to be like I was able to have this reckless behavior, you know, without anyone else suffering the consequence except me being broke all the time. Yeah, so.
Good stuff. So maybe just like a slightly off-topic question, because we're seeing similar teams like engineering founded teams that kind of like build products for years. How long did it take you to build MVP or like sellable version of Clockify?
So it took us like 3 months to build like a version that was useful to us, another month to make it useful for everyone else, and it took another, I think we made first $10 like probably like 9 months into building the product. And we became cash flow positive at month 12. So it was already like a 10 plus people team. So we reached like cash flow positivity really quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like moving to States. So these days we're often hearing from like tier 1 European VCs that they encourage European founders to move as quickly as possible to the United States. I know you made that move pretty young. You moved to New York, and I listened that you said that it was kind of like life-changing experience.
Yeah.
So life-changing personally or as a founder, just kind of like a next question is like, then you moved to the Silicon Valley, and what was the difference like between New York and Silicon Valley?
I mean, at the time when I was like trying to build products, like no one was building products in the Balkans. There was like 2 companies that did it, you know. So technically, like if you want to learn from someone, there's no people that can teach you stuff, you know. And when you go to the Silicon Valley, everyone is doing that thing, you know. So the amount of knowledge pool is insane, you know. The amount of, I honestly believe that I would not get where I am today if it wasn't for people like in the Silicon Valley who were like so selfless about like sharing their knowledge and like basically guiding me like how to reach certain goals, you know. So I think that the environment where you are while you're kind of strategizing and like defining tactics for your business, I think that's critical, you know. I think it's like really, really important for you to be in the environment where you can get so much knowledge casually, you know, not like having like a scheduled meeting with someone where you're gonna get like advice. No, like your friends that you hang out with every day, they have to be in that thing, you know. So you're gonna be acquiring all this knowledge like spontaneously, you know. And if you live in such environment where everyone is like, even like Uber drivers are like building software, like there's just no way to have a conversation where there isn't at least like 5% of useful stuff for business, you know. So I think that was the key for me. Even today, like in the Balkans, like there's no other companies where we can poach like product managers from, you know? Like, I think we're like the biggest like producer of talent in the Balkans, you know, and that's good for the ecosystem, but ourselves, we can't really like pick a company and like steal their employees. Like, it's just like still difficult to do that. We can do that in the Silicon Valley, so.
You mentioned you have 600 employees. How many of those are in the region?
I would say 80% are in the Balkans. We have Philippines as well, and we have something in the US and Switzerland as well. So yeah, most like 80% is like Balkans, and this company has been built by Balkan people.
Okay.
You know? I can't say Serbian because like it's not only Serbian at all. There's like pretty much everyone who hate each other, like politically, like we're all like building business together, and we really like each other. So yeah.
And of course, you guys are fully remote, but
yeah, almost fully remote.
Almost
yeah,
fully
like
remote.
we have like certain percentage of people that still like to come to office. Yeah, so.
But do you think like I believe when you started, you guys were all together in the office?
Yeah. That was kind of we were kind of fully on site until like COVID, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would be able to build Clockify and have all these experiments if you were fully remote from scratch?
I don't know, man. I mean, I have like a lot of kind of contradicting opinions about these, you know, so this kind of stuff, these questions. So I don't know. It feels to me that if I would build my next thing, like when I would be like 5 or 10 people big, I think it's critical for us to be like in the office, like to quickly communicate and iterate. At this point, like where you can afford to be slow, you know, and when you can afford to kind of plan stuff in advance in a slow manner, I think remote can be doable. But you have to understand like one thing. I mean, I have like a very clear awareness that we are like very inefficient, you know. But my political decision was that I want to keep people happy, although that creates like probably like 30% of inefficiency because we can make that up with money, you know. There's like things that we cannot make up with money, you know, such as creativity, you know, and I feel like we're having like issues there. But I mean, productivity can be made up with money, you know, creativity cannot, you know, so that's kind of a big question for me, like how to move forward, you know. It's a very complex topic, and it's very kind of based to kind of case by case basis, like how you analyze that and from which perspective. So it's a very complex question. You cannot generalize. You cannot say like office only or remote only or hybrid. Like there's no unique answer, and there's like no generalized answer as well. So.
Oh, fully agree. So when things really kind of like hit off, I listened that you were actually, when you launched the Product Hunt campaign, you were actually on the plane flying from Budapest to United States.
Yeah, I was actually sitting at the airport, like because I was like trying to save like $300 for a plane ticket. So I would show up like at Budapest airport like at 1 a.m. you know, to get like a 7 a.m. flight. So. Yeah, and there was this guy like laying on a bench, like he was like holding his hand in his pants, you know. That was like such a funny moment. I have that photo that I'm never gonna forget that. Yeah, and that's when I got inspiration to kind of throw a Product Hunt post. Yeah.
But why do you think that kind of like it really hit off with Product Hunt?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like it's like we call that like network effect lottery, you know. So I mean, if you ask me like why Clockify became so popular, like it's also very difficult to answer that question. You know, obviously there's like value, you know, but that's typically not enough. So I don't know, some forces, like some dark forces of internet, I don't know, or like maybe like because I was kind of contrarian, you know, I basically like said like, okay, this product is a copy of that product, but it's free. You're not going to pay anything for that. So that's kind of controversial, you know, and that's like a huge gamble, you know. But I had nothing to lose, you know, so I kind of gambled, and I think that paid off. Like, I think that was like the biggest factor why it got like visibility, like that post, why it got a lot of traction. So.
Okay, so that's kind of like was the secret sauce at that point of time, because technically, like there was no kind of like technological moat or anything. Like there were already time trackers on
totally
the market.
Not. There was like 80 of them on the market. So yeah, like totally like no reason. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's like something deeply psychological about the name, and then like fact that I made a controversial statement, and then that it was free, and that it was relatively useful, So like, I think there's like a bunch of different factors, and probably people perceived us as underdogs, and people like underdogs. So that, I don't know. It's hard to kind of know for sure. So
cool. So today, like Clockify and like the brand Cave.com, you not just expanded traction-wise, but like also from a product perspective. So now you have Pumble as like a communication tool and Plaky, funny name, at least for us Serbians, as a project management platform. So you still have full control over your company. So what's next?
I mean, we have like a huge roadmap of stuff to build. We don't have to kind of get another brand to kind of expand like a feature set. There's just so much stuff we need to build. Like just integrating all these products together, it's like a huge amount of work. So yeah, it's just like we're just going to keep adding features like that are basically help businesses to perceive our ecosystem as a kind of operating system for their business. So there's just so much stuff to be built there. And we just have endless amount of work to do, and it's mainly like product and feature focused. Like we're not like kind of planning to introduce like 6 more brands. Like that's probably not the route we're going to take. So,
and Clockify was attempt number 8. Like how
9,
was
yeah.
Okay, 9. Sorry.
Yeah.
For Pumble and Plaky, like were they kind of like number 10 and 11 or like 15 or 20?
So they're not failures at all. They're actually like, they also have like a lot of traction because of like cross-selling and cross-distribution. And they're kind of adjacent product to like our customer base on Clockify is like highly compatible with all the products that we have built after Clockify. So they're also like gaining a lot of traction. And now I see like a lot of YouTube videos like that are not paid by us, where people say, like put like a clickbait headline saying like, why is everyone leaving Slack to use Pumble? Why is everyone leaving X to use that? So I started to see a lot of that stuff on social media, and it's a really high value product, so they're also doing really good. And we're selling bundle, and our bundle is selling like crazy, which means that people don't want just one product, they actually want like all products. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of proof, like financial proof that like things didn't fail for sure, like when it comes to follow-up products. So.
Great. As we are closing to the end, like, is there any question that you would like to pick up? One of the reckless behavior or anything, any other?
What is it? Focusing on one product. I mean, that's a good question. Like, what is your opinion on focusing on one product, like Clockify, versus having a portfolio? Does more products drastically diminish focus? Well, it depends. I mean, depends what your goal is. Like, obviously, as a business person, like, exit makes sense in a lot of scenarios, So, like, focusing on one product and, like, really setting goals to kind of reach certain point that is not too far from your total addressable market and selling, that makes a lot of sense, and focusing on one product in that scenario, that's, like, really, really good, But if you want to, like, get out of your TAM, and, like, not hit a ceiling and then like having issues selling off at that point, you can build like multiple products. And I don't think it's a problem if the product are kind of related. So I would say that it's not a problem.
So unfortunately, we're slowly running out of time. So just to kind of like wrap up.
Yeah, so if you want to, this is a cool question. Besides bootstrapping, how much the government funding can change the course, like innovation funds, Serbia, without private money on the table? I mean, innovation fund has like a really good deal, like because it's like non-diluting and you have to pay royalties. So I think it's a great deal, but I think it's a really bad deal to do any business with government of Serbia. You don't want to trust them anything, and you want to make sure your intellectual property is not in Serbia. So and then you use that money to basically fund everything you can do to make sure the government ends up in jail. So yeah, just don't have your intellectual property in Serbia until we get the new government. So that's my advice. Yeah.
And now to more generalist advice. Like, what would you tell to 25-year-old Nenad?
Yeah, I think that most important thing for business success, if you're young, is to pick a type of business that matches your sales personality. So what does that mean? So if you're building a business that requires that you do like outbound sales, like door-to-door knocking, you have to really have like really intimate knowledge of your own personality, like whether that's going to be difficult for you or not. If it's going to be easy for you to do that, then you can like build a business that requires such sales approach, you know. But if you're someone like me who kind of like really go around and knock on the doors, you know, and like I can get rejection, but not in sales. And then, yeah, if you can do that, that's great. Build a business that requires that sort of sales approach. But if you can't do that, like make sure you select the business that can be sold by a sales funnel, you know, just like kind of website, kind of ads, or kind of self-sign-up, self-register, self-service. Like pick that sort of business. I think that like matching your sales personality with the business you're doing, that's like the key for early stages, you know, like unless you're like really capable of pulling off like huge fundraising from the beginning. But I think you can reach a lot more with a lot less money if you personally as a founder can do what it takes to sell this business, like to sell the service, to sell the product, whatever. I think that's like the most important lesson I learned from 8 failures, you know, because like most of the failures I had were just not matching my sales personality. Like they were just like made for someone else to sell it, and I couldn't afford paying those people at the time. So that's kind of my message to younger folks.
Thank you, Nenad.
My pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.